For the sake of this discussion, I'll just refer to him as Marvin. Marvin is the size of the average jockey at Hialeah or Arlington Park or whatever. He's a young black person that I defended several years ago. And with all this stuff about Black Lives Matter and defunding police and things like that, I thought it would be fairly relevant to share this story with you. Marvin is a bit of a peacemaker, excuse me here, and he hangs out in this bar near downtown Denver with a bunch of his other friends. It's a mixed area. There's a lot of upscale restaurants, there's a few dive bars, and a lot of in between. This particular bar was the Washington Street Tavern. It had a mixed crowd in there from the mixed area, and everybody seemed to get along fairly well, black and white together, so to speak. One day a fight broke out between these two guys. And the two guys were over 200 pounds each, over 6 foot tall each, and were going at it. And everybody in the bar knew everybody, so Marvin steps in between them. In the meantime, the owner, bartender, had called the police, so the police arrive. As soon as they see the cops outside, everybody in the bar settles down, except for Marvin, who's arguing with one of the people that was involved in the fight. The cops come in and see Marvin there talking and not bracing himself like is expected by the police. So they throw him to the ground and rough him up a bit. And he's protesting. He was just trying to stop a fight. Some of the patrons were saying that too. But Marvin did what they refer to as resisting, which means he didn't say yes, master, to the police, I guess. Anyway, they drag him outside and wail on him for a while with their billy club, giving him about 3 or 4 brain lesions or whatever the hell they call them, fractures. And while they're wrestling him down to handcuff him, one of the policemen got his finger into Marvin's mouth. And Marvin went into a seizure fit. As a result, the policeman got his finger bitten off. Well, all of the cops then were really pissed, so they broke a few more bones with Marvin, took him off the police station, charged him with felonious assault on a police officer, resisting arrest, and various other counts. So he wandered up into my office, and I agreed to defend him, mainly because the bar owner, an old-time client of mine, asked me to, and started to prepare for trial. I interviewed about 20 witnesses or so in the bar at the time, and their stories all seemed to coincide. So I got an investigator who got affidavits from all these people, tried to show them to the prosecutor, but the prosecutor didn't give a shit. It was a matter of policy that when a policeman is assaulted or even offended, you protect his honor and you never criticize him, and you show your solidarity by backing up the police no matter what. This is what happened there. So in the meantime, I go to court with 30 some witnesses ready to go to trial. District attorney goes in there and moves for continuance. This happens 3 more times, and each time I lose more and more of my witnesses because they can't afford to take off from work all these times to go to court to appear there for their cases to be continued. Finally, after about a year, we go to trial. In the meantime, one of the persons that I practiced law with, he was a city attorney, and he had a part-time office in our building, 2 offices down from mine. And he told me that my name had got around the courthouse as being, how would you say, persona non grata among the police and city attorneys. And it was because I was pushing the Marvin case and not making a deal and not being sympathetic because the poor cop lost his finger while beating the shit out of Marvin. Well, finally we go to trial. And it was one of these go to trial or else situations, and they wouldn't take anything less than a plea to a felony. And Marvin definitely wasn't a felon. He was an innocent bystander, essentially. And if anything, he was victimized by the police. But we go to trial. And the prosecutor's all full of piss and vinegar. He's going to get this black, ugly guy that doesn't respect police and put his ass in jail. Well, we go through the trial. The witnesses testify. The prosecutor does a poor job of cross-examining him, and I put on a credible case that poor Marvin was the victim of mistake, in the very least, and police brutality at best. Well, it's time for the prosecutor to cross-examine Marvin. So he's on the stand, and the prosecutor's showing what a tough guy he is. Starts leaning down on Marvin pretty heavily. Rapid fires his questions, gets him all rattled. And the next thing, Marvin's frothing at the mouth and shaking and everything like that. So I knew he was epileptic because that was our defense. And I said to the judge and the prosecutor, he's having an epileptic seizure, do something. So the Boy Scout prosecutor gets up there and sticks a pencil in his mouth. Marvin clamps down and the pencil goes snap, and the end of it flies out toward the jury. Well, they called a recess, and the prosecutor thought he'd done enough damage to his case and had no further questions. So we let it go to the jury. They're instructed, and they go out to deliberate. After about a half an hour, I guess it was, I get a note from the jury, or the court gets a note from the jury saying, can we award damages to the defendant? Well, I've never had that happen in a criminal case before. Anyway, after the trial, the prosecutor came up and he says, how in the hell did you get him to do that? And I said, you get a little more experience, you'll probably learn that the police aren't always as honest with their lawyers as most defendants are with defense attorneys. Defendants know they shouldn't lie because it's not in their best interest. And the police figure that lying is in their best interest, and it's better than to face that or a grand jury or any other problem. So typically they'll lie. And what's really bad is that as soon as the lie is stated, the whole damn department backs them. It's as though they've all lost any sense of integrity, honor, or whatever. So that's what happened to Marvin, and that's what happened to his case. And this was 40 some years ago, and it hasn't changed much then. You've got a whole culture in the police department, a them and us culture. Right before this, I was on a study project and consulting to various groups as a criminologist. And one of the things that came out was the study on militarization. Now, this was 1970, just as Nixon was taking place. And the data that at that time showed that militarization of police was a bad idea, and it affected the public very wrongly, because you had this looking glass theory of me, Piaget, and Cooley, that you are what you think other people think you are. And if you think everybody thinks you're a bully, or everybody thinks you're a bad guy or whatever, you start acting like it. And that goes both ways. So the policemen, if they think everybody thinks they're mean mothers and things like that, they'll start acting that way. Consequently, you get this dichotomy, and you get it in such a way that there's very little room for compromise or anything else. So Lakewood, about that time, decided to demilitarize. And what they did is they bought blazers for all the policemen with little Lakewood patches on them. Well, it worked pretty well. The complaints about police brutality and things like that were way down. The problem is the cops didn't like it, because they wanted to be a big hero. Most of them joined the police force for that, and I could be cynical and say the main reason was they didn't think the girls would be cooperating enough for them to get laid all the time, but I don't think that's really the same. The thing of it is, it's a police culture. They're built around a police culture, and a macho police culture at that, and they don't want to destroy that image, because that is their self-image. And because they're acting like policemen in the military, they act like it's a military occupation, and they get the military occupation mentality of them and us, and anybody that's not us is the enemy, and anybody that's the enemy could hurt them or attack them at any time. Therefore, they should be suspected, and you should be suspicious as a survival technique. Now, that's so much ingrained over the last 50 years in the police department that it's going to take a lot of work to change it. And until we recognize it's a matter of the culture, it's not going to get changed. Legislation prohibiting this, that, or the other is not going to change the behavior of the police. You're going to have to get more into the root causes and things such as that. You need them not to believe that they're the only line between lawlessness and the citizenry. And the citizen is typically or possibly a lawless rebel or threat. And you treat everything as a threat because it's your defense mechanism. So the fact you have police brutality doesn't really surprise any criminologist that I know, because it goes with the culture. Until we change that and teach policemen that they're supposed to be friends of the population and not their rulers or conquerors or whatever it may be, we're not going to have any reform, no matter how much we try. Talk to you later. This is Dennis signing out.